Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT08, and BT08 offers us lots of new and interesting cards to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck is going to be a bit of a meme deck. It's definitely something not competitive at all. This is 110% a casual deck. Don't go to events expecting to win with this deck, but it's still a fun deck to play nonetheless, and that's going to be the brand new version of the Tyrannomon deck. The Tyrannomon deck has kind of been a thing on people's radars all the way back since BT01, and it's gotten a little bit of support here and there, but we do have a brand new card to kind of help bring the deck into a new light and to build the deck in a new and interesting way, and that is in the form of MasterTyrannomon. So MasterTyrannomon is going to be a really strong card to sit on the field to try to make all of your other Tyrannomons a lot more aggressive than they normally would be, allowing the deck to take a more low-to-the-ground aggro style of approach. So without further ado, on to the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running one copy of Kapurimon. So the 5th Digitama is a flex spot of the deck. You don't even have to run one if you don't want to, but I do prefer running some form of DP boost on the Digitama slot to try to make our Digimon a little bit more aggressive. And Kapurimon is one of the better Digitama that we have at accomplishing this with a very easy condition to trigger, where during your turn, while you have a Tamer in play, then this Digimon gains plus 1000 DP, only requiring a Tamer on the field, which we're running a couple of different Tamers to try to take advantage of this ability. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gurimon. So Gurimon is going to be the main Digitama of the deck because it's going to be acting as one of the primary, if not the primary, draw engine of the deck. The problem with a lot of aggro decks is they generally run out of steam because they don't have really good draw engines, and Gurimon is help shoring up that weakness for this style of deck. So his inheritable ability states that when you attack once per turn, if this Digimon has 6,000 or more DP, then we get to draw 1 card, and we have a lot of cards that could easily hit over 6,000 DP to be able to consistently try to draw extra cards with. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Monodramon. So Monodramon, I value the efficiency of this card. So this card, even though he doesn't have any abilities, he's still just a solid card because he hard drops for 2 or evos for 0 with 3000 DP, so that way we could easily get a Digimon onto the field and Digivolve him up right away with. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Agumon. So this is the BT01 version of Agumon, and we're using this card as the deck's dedicated digger for digging out our Tamers. So he has the on-play ability where we get to reveal the top cards of our deck and add a Tamer from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. The cool thing about this card is the fact that the Tamer that we're looking for isn't color restricted, so if we find any Tamer, then we're allowed to take it, and we are playing a couple of decent Tamers that we want to see and we want to try to play. Next, I'm going to be running 4 of Gammamon. So this version of Gammamon is interacting with our Tamers, a little bit more specifically with our Red Tamer, with the native ability where during your turn once per turn, when we play a Red Tamer, then we get to draw 1 card. So he's just a fantastic card to sit on our field for when we're able to play our Red Tamer, so that way we could have another way of replacing the card that we just lost from our hand, because one of the big weaknesses to a lot of Red and Green Tamers is they don't necessarily have card draw or on-play abilities attached to them, so this is a really good card again to try to shore up that weakness and gain some benefit for playing our Tamers when our Tamers don't have any on-play effects. And then he has a really nice inheritable ability to try to add some extra control type elements into the deck for when the opponent doesn't have any suspended Digimon for us to attack into on their lower stages. So his ability states that when attacking, if this Digimon has 6,000 or more DP, then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3,000 DP or less. So if they're just sitting on, let's just say, a Madoki Betamon or a Syakumon, some sort of floodgate to try to control and limit your actions, then this is a really good card at being able to delete those Digimon, opening up the floodgates to allow us to play our cards in the various different ways that we want to play them. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Biyomon. So this is the Classic Collection version of Biyomon, and this card is just, again, more card draw for what the deck is trying to do. So it has the nice inheritable ability of when attacking once per turn. When this Digimon attacks a player, then we get to draw 1 card, adding to the overall consistency of the deck, so we could try to always have cards in our hand that we want to be able to play. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Agumon. So this is the Gammamon starter deck version of Agumon, and this card is just one of the best cards that we have to DP boost our Digimon to make them even stronger than they normally would be. So he has the nice inheritable ability of when attacking, when this Digimon attacks a player, then we get plus 2000 DP for the turn, so that way we could easily hit our 6000 or above threshold that some of our cards want to be playing around with. Next, on to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tyrannomon. So this is the BT01 version of Tyrannomon, and we're playing this card just because he has the jamming ability. So we could use the jamming ability in combination with MasterTyrannomon's passive ability to be able to give our other Tyrannomon security attack +1 to ensure that Tyrannomon is going to be breaking both of the opponent's securities as long as there's no options or tamers that's going to shut off any of our abilities. So this just makes this version of Tyrannomon even more aggressive than it normally would be, and we also have various other ways that we could play this card, just because he's also a level 4 that hard plays for 4, which is a little bit on the cheaper side in case we don't see any of our rookies, on top of the fact that we could even use this card in combination with some of our other cards to do various interesting things with. So we could pair this up with Biyomon to gain some extra card draw, we could pair this up with Agumon from the Gammamon starter deck and Gurimon to again gain some extra card draw to be able to make this card as usable as we could possibly make him. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of DarkTyrannomon. So DarkTyrannomon is another Tyrannomon by name, so it does have lots of our Tyrannomon-based synergies, on top of the fact that this card natively has 6000 DP to try to take advantage of some of our various other abilities like Gurimon and Gammamon. And then on top of that, because he doesn't have any inheritable abilities at all or native abilities, he has a very efficient evo for 1 cost, so that way we could easily digivolve up into him and use him as a good aggro tool or climb our stages into the next stage without really losing much tempo. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Tyrannomon. So this is the Classic Collection version of Tyrannomon, and this is, yes, another Tyrannomon by name to take advantage of our Tyrannomon-based synergies, and even though he can digivolve off of red and green, we're not really trying to utilize much green cards just because this is more a red deck, because that's where a lot of the more aggressive cards are. But if we wanted to, we could think about trying to take advantage of the fact that we could digivolve off of green, and he is also counted as a green Digimon to play some various other options. But what we're really trying to use this card for is to be able to play our Tamer more efficiently, because he has a when digivolving ability where if we don't have a Taiga in play, then we get to play one from our hand for free, so that way we easily can get one onto the field and not necessarily skip a beat in terms of being able to play our cards the best that we can. Then, as an inheritable, this just makes our higher level Tyrannomons even stronger than they normally would be, where during your turn, while this Digimon has Tyrannomon in its name, then it gets plus 2000 DP, so our level 5s could basically be comparable to the opponent's level 6 in terms of DP and power. Then, speaking of our level 5s, next I'm going to be running 4 copies of MetalTyrannomon. So, MetalTyrannomon is another Tyrannomon for us to take advantage of the Tyrannomon-based synergies. That's kind of the whole point of the deck, and what MetalTyrannomon is doing is being a very powerful level 5 Digimon, even though he doesn't have any abilities at all. So what we're really using him for is the fact that he is actually a Tyrannomon to be able to play him more efficiently because of Taiga, and we want to take advantage of the fact that he does have a relatively high DP stat when it comes to level 5s, sitting at a solid 10,000 DP. So we could pair this up with any of our DP boosters to easily put him to 12 or even 14k when we're able to swing with this card to be able to deal some consistent damage on our level 5 slot. And then the main card and star of the deck is going to be 4 copies of MasterTyrannomon. So MasterTyrannomon is a little bit on the expensive side, being able to digivolve for 4 on a level 4 red or green Digimon. Again, we aren't necessarily trying to use a whole lot of green, so the green half doesn't really matter, but we're trying to take advantage of this card's passive ability with how this deck is built, because his passive ability states that during your turn, all of your Digimon with Tyrannomon in their name gain security attack +1. So we're really trying to be as aggressive as we possibly can with our level 4s and our level 5s to make the most of this ability. This ability does count itself, so that way even MasterTyrannomon is going to be able to swing for at least 2 checks, sitting at a solid 8000 DP natively, and with any DP boost, he could hit very easily as high as 12k to make his swings as safe as it possibly can be in terms of his DP. Then, on top of that, we're not really trying to take advantage of his inheritable ability, but we could add a level 6 if we wanted to in the deck to be able to utilize his ability, where it's just giving a generic security attack +1, so we can make whatever level 6 that we want to use a little bit stronger and hit a little bit harder. But again, this is a more low-to-the-ground aggro style of deck, just because we want to sit on MasterTyrannomon and try to play our level 4s as quickly and efficiently as we possibly can to be able to deal as much damage as quickly and efficiently as we possibly can. Next, on to the options. I'm just going to add the asterisk here that all of the options that I'm playing are optional. I haven't really found a good option lineup that I'm really comfortable with, just because we have lots of really good options that we could utilize depending on how your deck is built and what you're trying to gain out of your deck. So I'm going to be running 2 copies of Trident Revolver, just because Trident Revolver is a really solid removal card that'll also help us play some of our Tamers that's not color restricted on the Tamers that we're able to play. So the fact that we could delete a Digimon and get a Tamer on the field is making this card really appealing, on top of the security ability to do the same exact thing as its main ability. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Flame Memory Boost. So you could run Red Memory Boost if you really wanted to. I just value the Memory Boost ability, where we could use the delay effect to gain 2 memory at a later turn to make very powerful follow-up plays with. I really like Flame Memory Boost in this deck just because we are adding extra security attack on top of MasterTyrannomon's ability to add security attack +1 to be able to make our Digimon hit a little bit harder than they normally would and harder than what the opponent might be anticipating. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Crimson Blaze. So Crimson Blaze is a really good card at just trying to clear the field if the opponent is trying to outswarm you and has lots of Digimon in play. So this card reduces its play cost from our hand by 1 for each Digimon the opponent has, so it's actually at worst costing 5 and not 6, and it has the main ability where we get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less, and the opponent can't play Digimon by card effects until the end of the opponent's next turn. So that's the main ability we want to try to take advantage of, is trying to lock the opponent out of being able to free cast some of their cards, turning off some of their shenanigans, so that way we could have even easier and safer ways to be able to aggress onto the opponent while getting rid of their wide field. Then it also has the security ability to activate its main effect to, again, try to stop the opponent from playing their Digimon by their card effects and getting rid of their Digimon at the same time. And then the last option card of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Gaia Force to act as that big hard removal for the Digimon we can't normally remove. So this just allows us to delete any of the opponent's Digimon with a very powerful security ability of activating its main to get rid of those higher level problematic Digimon. And then lastly, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Taiga. So Taiga is going to be one of the most important cards in the deck, so that way we could try to play our Tyrannomons as efficiently as we possibly can, because he has this nice ability where during your turn, when digivolving one of your Digimon into a Digimon with Tyrannomon in its name from your hand, then we get to suspend this Tamer to be able to reduce the memory cost of that Digivolution by 1. So this just makes digivolving into basically any of our mid to high level Digimon a little bit easier, so that way we can make more powerful and efficient plays with. Then, on top of that, this card has a really good passive ability for all of our Tyrannomons to take advantage of, where all of your Digimon with Tyrannomon in its name gains the piercing ability, so that way we could try to beat up the opponent's Digimon and be able to deal damage to them at the same time. Then this card is also acting as a really solid green source, so that way we have the option to be able to run green options depending on your option lineup of choice. And then the last Tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Hiro. So Hiro is going to be that memory fixing Tamer, so that way at the start of our turn, we'll always be at 3 memory if our memory is ever less than 3. This is important so that way we could try to make as powerful plays as consistent and efficiently as we possibly can. And this card also actually has that synergy with the deck that we could take advantage of for being a memory fixer, unlike Marcus and unlike Tai. So what this card is doing is he has an ability where during your turn, when one of your Digimon with Gammamon in its name or your level 5 or higher Digimon attacks, we could suspend this Tamer to give one of our Digimon plus 2000 DP for the turn. It doesn't necessarily state that it has to target the attacking Digimon, it just states that any one of our Digimon on the field could gain that plus 2000 DP, so that way we could apply this to make our Digimon, again, even more aggressive than they normally would be, ensuring that they're going to have as easy time swinging and as safe as a time swinging as we could possibly make them. Then there's just a lot of different tech and tools that you could run depending on your base color of choice and the various other cards that you feel like you want to try to include into the deck. So if you wanted to, you could actually run a green-based deck, and we do have just as comparable of cards as the red base. I actually think that the red base is going to be a stronger base in the long run, just because we have lots of different abilities we want to take advantage of, but we do have some comparable effects in green. So that efficient rookie we still have in green. We still have ways to DP boost in green in the form of Agumon and Palmon. Then we have Tyrannomon as a really solid floodgate to try to stop the opponent's memory and manipulating shenanigans. But in the red side, even though we don't have Tyrannomon we could play, we could think about running Gaussmon as a floodgate to try to stop the opponent from reducing their Digivolution costs, while having a whole bunch of Gaussmon on the field actually make the Gaussmon stronger to be playing around with. And we do have various other ways to try to DP boost in red as well on our rookie level. Then, as far as some really solid other champions that you could play, if you are trying to go more green-based, then we do have two other Tyrannomons that we could take advantage of. So we could use the BT02 Tyrannomon to be able to try to dig out our higher level Digimon and our green Tamers. Then on top of that, we also have the Promo Tyrannomon to act as a really good card to aggress with because he boosts himself, and he's also going to boost the higher level Digimon that we're going to be using him with. Then, because we are just a really aggressive style of deck, we could even squeeze in some hybrids, and we do have hybrids in both red and green that we could think about playing. So we could try to run Arbomon for the green side of Tamers respectively, and Agumon as the red counterpart. And then as far as an alternative level 5, if you are playing the green base, then we do have MetalTyrannomon to not necessarily aggress with, but to use for his inheritable ability in combination with RustTyrannomon to be able to make RustTyrannomon stronger by allowing him to unsuspend himself when he deletes a level 6 or higher Digimon in battle. And then as far as the level 6s go, you could think about splashing in RustTyrannomon in the red base, even though you'll only be able to Digivolve him on top of MasterTyrannomon. He's still just a really decent card that we could use to be aggressive with. But if you do want to run a Mega in red, you could kind of just run whatever Mega you feel like you want to run, just because there's no specific synergy we're trying to line up. Then, as I stated before, we do have green options that we could think about playing, so if you wanted to, you could run Hidden Potential Discovered to be able to get up into a MasterTyrannomon as quickly and efficiently as we possibly can. But most of the time, you're probably just going to want to run some options to suspend the opponent's Digimon to try to take advantage of the piercing ability that Taiga is going to be giving our Tyrannomons. And then as far as some other really interesting cards that we could think about playing, we could play Rowdy Rocker not only as some card draw, but to try to shove our lower level inheritables underneath some of our Digimon, so that way we can make our Digimon even stronger because we do have some really solid inheritable abilities that we're playing around with. And then, like I stated before, if you wanted to, you could run Red Memory Boost to help with the overall consistency of the deck, actually having a card to help dig out some of our Digimon, while still having that delay ability to gain 2 memory at a later turn. Then, if you do just want a really cheap and efficient option card to help boost our Digimon's DP and potentially deal some extra security damage, then there's no better card we have right now than Lightning Joust to accomplish said goal. And then as far as some alternative Tamers that we could play with, we could even think about playing with Mimi, just because MasterTyrannomon is part green, so we could take advantage of Mimi's ability to turbo out our raising area. And then as far as an alternative red tamer, you could think about playing Yoli. Most of the time, you're just trying to play Yoli just to gain some extra memory, because at the start of our main, as long as we have a red Digimon in play, which in the red base, all of our Digimon are red, then she'll help us gain some extra memory. And if we are going to be using our MasterTyrannomon to be aggressive with, then we could even take advantage of her second ability only on MasterTyrannomon and our Classic Collection version of Tyrannomon to be able to count as both colors, so that way we could suspend this tamer when they're attacking to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less. But for the most part, this is just my interpretation of a really aggressive red-based Tyrannomon deck that's trying to take advantage of MasterTyrannomon to his utmost potential. And even though this, again, is not going to be a hyper-competitive deck, it's still a really fun casual deck to be playing around with, especially since we have multiple different ways and lots of different tech and tools to really customize the deck to make it your own. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.